Does anybody have an East Asian employee?
I've got a gay employee, I've got a South Asian employee. The free space! I've got a minority intern that works for free.
We have a winner, all right. Great example of an executive. Congratulations, sir.
Damn it, I didn't have a female employee.
All white people are racist. So I put this up because I really want any white person in the room to know up front that this is what we're dealing with, that it's not going to be this coddling of white tears and what that looks like. We're not going to discuss, oh, maybe some of us have worked it out. No, you're always going to be racist, actually. So even when you're on your path to trying to figure out how to be a better human being, because I believe that white people are born into not being human.
I think that there are some folks who are will not be pleased until white people are on their knees groveling to them. And to me, I don't need a white person to apologize to me for something they did not do. Hello, everybody. My name is Rogan, and this is ThisBahamianGyal. If this is your first time coming across my platform, welcome. I do social commentary as well as reaction videos. So if that's your thing, you've come to the right place. With that being said, let's jump right in. Do y'all remember 5 years ago when Starbucks made the news because one of its managers in Philadelphia called the cops on 2 black men that were sitting inside that store?
No longer, no further. Protesters calling for justice today. After the arrests of 2 black men at this Philadelphia Starbucks on Thursday. But their defense lawyer says this wasn't about the law. It was about bias.
A lot of people are saying this issue is about race. Do you think this would have happened if your clients were not black?
I would love to hear the 911 call on this case, but what's the 911 call you're never going to hear? Hi, this is the Starbucks at 18th and Spruce. There are 2 white women sitting in here. One of them asked to use the bathroom and she didn't order a coffee. Come quick.
For those of you who don't remember, Starbucks closed all of its stores across the United States, and they forced nearly 200,000 of its workers to undergo racial bias training. Now, workplace diversity training is not new here in the United States. It really kicked off in the mid-1960s with the introduction of equal employment laws. But if we're talking about recent memory, I would definitely say that Starbucks incident really sparked a chain reaction. And to this day, we have companies across the United States jumping on the diversity and inclusion bandwagon. That diversity and inclusion training has grown so much and has become so widespread that it is now a multi-billion-dollar industry. But the problem is, it's not yielding the results that people expected. So a few days ago, I came across this interview with John Stossel. You all remember him. Like, I guess if you're a certain age, you certainly remember him. He's a reporter. He's a libertarian. He's a TV presenter. He's a pundit. Well, he did an interview with Dr. Erec Smith, who's an associate professor of rhetoric and composition. And he's also a former diversity and inclusion trainer. So he would go into, I would imagine, universities and workplaces. And he said that that program is just not working. And I thought the things that he said were so interesting that I wanted to bring it to you all because I want to have this conversation and give you my thoughts and get your thoughts later on in the video. But let's jump right in because this is a reaction video. I want you to hear what he has to say. I'm not going to play the entire thing because I don't want to get a copyright strike. But I do think that there are elements of this interview that you all need to hear. And so here we go.
Why not tell people to check their privilege? Some of us have privilege.
Yes, but some of us are accomplished, and that's being called privilege. And I think that's unfair. It's one thing to be born on third base and act like you hit a triple. It's another thing to be born on first base and still second, right? And again, third, that's an accomplishment.
And that's frowned upon now?
Well, it's frowned upon by people who find it strategic to frown upon it, yes. If you can keep this race thing going, then you will always have a business in getting rid of racism. Even Ibram X. Kendi proposed a branch of government, right, regarding anti-racism. And what do you need to justify that? You need racism. It's in his best interest to perpetuate racism, in order to maintain a career. Then there are people who are like, wow, well, this is a, billion-dollar industry. I'm going to get in on this. Do my trainings and things like that and accuse people of racism just to keep it perpetuated, right? To keep it going so that it never goes away, so that I keep making my money
It is a multi-billion-dollar industry.
Yes, it
now.
is.
Every big company.
Yeah.
They feel they have to.
Right, and there it is. They feel like they have to. They have to say something. They have to signal to the world that they're doing something. Whether that something is effective or not is secondary.
Is it effective?
It doesn't seem to be effective, no. In fact, it seems to be doing worse. It seems to be making people less likely to interact with people who are unlike them, because it's like a minefield now.
Less likely to interact?
Yes, yes, yes. After a training where you hear things about microaggressions, right? Microaggressions. If you ask somebody what they do for a living, somehow that's racist, right? If you learn that, then why would you take a chance?
I better not talk to Erec because I might say something wrong.
Precisely.
Let me stop right there and address that. Now, I do believe that in microaggressions, I absolutely believe that happens. As a woman, I've experienced people being microaggressive towards me. As a Black person, I've certainly felt that. As a foreign person, I've definitely felt that. But to Dr. Smith's point about the effect of these trainings and how it has this unintended consequence, which is that people are they become very reluctant to have conversations with people. And I certainly understand that, because I've said before in previous videos that people do not want to be labeled as racist. They don't want to be labeled as homophobic. They don't want to be labeled as transphobic. They don't want to be called a bigot. And so they will avoid any sort of confrontation or any sort of potential clash, anything, because they don't want to be perceived as that thing. I've seen it so many times in workplaces that I've been in where, for example, it's not just related to race, it could be related to gender identity or sexuality. If someone feels as if they have the potential to offend you, they are not going to want to have a conversation. So, you would think that after these diversity and inclusion trainings that folks would be like, I have a greater understanding and now, I'm going to engage with you in a different way. But that's just really not human nature. I think most human beings are going to say, I don't want problems. I don't want to end up in the HR department. I don't want to possibly lose my job. And you know what? Navigating, and he used the right word, it's like a landmine. It's like, you're going into this landmine, you don't know when your foot is going to get blown off. So I'd rather not even enter that territory. And so what happens, and the unintended consequence, is that individuals will just not have conversations with their coworkers, their peers. If they feel as if there's going to be any perceived slight, they don't want any part of that. Even for me, I remember just recently, a lady, I was going through something medically, and a woman on my job said, Ro, I'm going to pray for you. And then she stopped. She doesn't know me. She doesn't know I'm a Christian. She doesn't know that I would certainly welcome those prayers. I'm just saying this as an example. And she said, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean it like that. And it's crazy that someone can't even say, I'm going to pray for you, which, they're praying because they want the best for you. But people will get super offended about that. And so the way she immediately stopped and recoiled and just was so apologetic, I had to constantly reassure her, listen, girl, you preaching to the choir. I'm one of you. I'm a Christian. So please, I need your prayers. Pray for me. I'm happy for that. But I have seen people react so differently in the work setting. I'm not a believer. I'm an atheist. And then they get super upset rather than just, a gentle correction to say, no, I'm not this, but it's okay. It's like this, the tiniest slight is just overblown. And so people try to avoid that completely. So let's continue listening. I think, first of all, this is my first time even hearing about this professor. And he impressed me so much in this interview because he just spoke the truth. So let's just listen a little more.
Any other ideas about this not working?
Well, if you compel people, to go to certain things just out of pure resentment, they may, back away and rebel. I saw that myself, even when I was doing diversity training that wasn't especially woke.
All this money is spent, all these courses, all this time. Why doesn't it get the results they want?
Well, it might be getting the results they want. Depends on who you mean by they.
Why doesn't it bring racial harmony to the office?
Because diversity, equity, and inclusion, those words don't mean what most people think they mean.
Right.
Diversity is diversity of bodies, of skin color, ethnicity, not of thought. You know, you can have many different bodies, but they have to be, basically on the same page ideologically. That page is often something akin to critical social justice. Inclusion means, well, you can't make people uncomfortable. And in a world of microaggressions, that's easy to do. So now inclusion means I'm going to silence myself and not talk to the black people, right?
Yeah.
And equity, as most people know, does not mean equality. It means equality of outcome, right? We have to make sure everybody ends up at the same place, no matter how they got there, which is why we get rid of aptitude tests, which is why we get rid of AP classes, which is why we have equitable math and things like that. That's equity.
Because there were too many Asians and whites in the AP class.
Apparently, or not enough black people.
That part.
And that's interesting. It's easy to say people are doing this out of resentment, right? But some people may be doing this out of love. Is it hate for white people or love for black people? And what's motivating them? Now, yes, they're still misguided, but they see this as, well, the ends justify the means, and the ends are racial equality and black dignity, so I'm going to do what I have to do.
But it's real. We whites have most of the power, most of the money. We hold most of the high positions. Some of that is genuine achievement. Some is racism.
Yeah. So what do? You give other people the opportunity to acquire those things themselves. You get them into a good school. You bring back institutions like churches and other after-school programs. You teach them what it means to be an entrepreneur in this world. It's not just about victimhood. It's not just about white oppressors. There's some of that going on, but there's also some agency that we have, to get to where we want to go.
Let me stop right there, because if you've been watching my channel, I know a lot of you who are probably going to come across this video have never seen me before, but I have constantly talked about personal responsibility and having agency, as he puts it so beautifully, having agency, over your life. There are circumstances and situations that are not conducive to growth for some people. Could be black people or other people of color. But I've always felt like there's nothing a white person has, a wealthy white person has, that I can't get if I'm not interested. All I have to do is be interested in getting it. Like, I can work hard to achieve it. I don't think that there's anybody who can hold me back from getting whatever it is that I want. I may not have been able to get it going this route, but I can go this route, or I can try different routes to achieve my overall goal. I don't believe that anybody has the capacity to hold me back. Even on a job, some of you are on jobs and you might say, well, I am being held back because my boss doesn't want to promote me in this. So technically I am being held back. Well, get another job, or get out of the mindset of having a job and work for yourself. And then you're only limited by your ability and your talent and your ambition. Then nobody else can hold you back, but I don't like blaming other people for my downfall, or blame, like I say, and this is a delicate situation because people could say, oh, but this person did that. Yes, this is true. People have an influence on your life, but you have to push past it and take some responsibility for yourself. I want to talk about, I want to just give a quick stat here about the global diversity and inclusion market. It's projected, this is the cost, because I'm talking about how they're basically peddling racism for billions of dollars, right? Making it's a multi-billion-dollar business. But the global diversity and inclusion market is projected to reach $15.4 billion by 2026. $15.4 billion. In February this year, Chief.com, this is according to Chief.com, noted that $8 billion had been spent per year in the United States alone. $8 billion. But the money that is being spent is not yielding the results that these companies want. And again, to Erec Smith's point, I guess it depends also on what results they're looking for. If you have a company that is just simply virtue signaling and they want to say, hey, listen, we spent XYZ amount of money, dollars to have these trainings and we've had them year round, and then it's just the optics and people can say, well, they are doing something, then I suppose it's worth the money. But if you truly want to achieve some sort of racial harmony, and honestly, I don't think that's ever going to be something that occurs. I think we're always going to have people who have differences of opinion. I remember some time ago, I was having a conversation with a guy and he said, when the old dinosaurs die off, then it'll be like, more harmony, more racial harmony. I said, let me tell you something about old dinosaurs. They give birth to new dinosaurs and they have the same mindset that those old dinosaurs have. When your child grows up in your house or your grandchildren, they are subjected to what you think. You might have a child or two who deviates from the script, but more often than not, they share a similar mindset. Granddad said, don't date this person or don't do that. I mean, it happens even today. So, old dinosaurs give birth to new dinosaurs. It doesn't always work like that. On the topic of privilege, because it's something that we hear a lot of people of color talk about when it comes to white people, like, oh, you have privilege, you have privilege. And I think they need to be more exposed to some white folks, because let me tell you something. There are white people, if you want to talk about like how they could just walk, I've heard people say, oh, they could just walk into a bank and get a loan. Where? You know how many white people, I used to work in a bank. I worked in 2 banks before. And I could tell you, there were some white folks who walked in there and they walked out without a loan. They didn't get anything. Okay. If you didn't have collateral, if you didn't have good credit, any of that stuff, you were not getting anything. Okay, a lot of white folks are living paycheck to paycheck, just like black folks, just like Hispanic folks. Some of them are very poor. I think there's this perception that just because you're white, like you have money, and that's inaccurate. And then you want to talk about privilege. Isn't it relative? I grew up in a single parent household. So I could say to someone who grew up in a 2-parent household, oh, you were privileged. And someone might say, well, privileged how? I had 2 parents, but we didn't have any money. Yeah, but you were privileged, If your parents could take you to the dentist every year or twice a year, I could say you were privileged. Whereas some kid says, the first time I went to the dentist was when I was an adult. You know what I mean? You can always point to somebody's privilege. So I think we need to be careful about just talking about, oh, this person's privileged and that person's privileged. You don't know people's stories. Just stop talking. Stop talking. As it relates to the diversity, like I see a lot of companies would try to recruit women and black people, Hispanic people, Asian people, gay people, trans people. They want to look diverse. And this is, again, to Dr. Smith's point, there's the optics are more important than actually having diversity. Yes, it looks good in corporate photos to put on the website to say, look at our staff, look at how many people we've got here and they're represented across the spectrum, but they all think the same. That's not diversity. You want to have people who are dissenters in your midst. I know that sounds kind of crazy, but dissenters, they keep you in check. It's checks and balances. It is not working. It is not yielding the results that companies are hoping for, unless the result that they're hoping for is just to show people, to virtue signal and say, we are doing this thing. Think about when Coca-Cola put out this, I think they had this training for their staff on how to be less white.
Another example, this is a LinkedIn course by Robin DiAngelo.
Yes, inspired by Robin DiAngelo anyway, yes.
Inspired.
Yes.
And this blew up on the internet. Why?
Yes. If I'm not mistaken, it was Coca-Cola that got caught doing this. I show this to my students every semester as an exigence. So what do you do, conflict management? What do you do when your company does this? I actually use that example as a kind of lesson. But what was happening there is a diversity training in which whiteness in general was the problem. And the thesis statement, if you will, of this training was try to be less white.
Try to be less white means?
Try to be less European or Eurocentric or more Enlightenment driven. Try to be less classically liberal.
Be less oppressive. Be less arrogant. Be less ignorant. It's reasonable.
That is by no means a white thing.
Right.
But The point is to demonize the other side as much as possible. Marcuse called this repressive tolerance. Nothing the other side can do can be accepted.
I am not even a white person, and I was deeply offended by that statement, or I was deeply offended by this training, how to be less white. Because had you replaced white with Black, Jewish, gay, transgender, disabled, differently abled, whatever, what do you think would have happened to Coca-Cola? I always like to ask these questions. It's like, come on. But it's okay to beat up on white folks? How to be less white. And I do agree with Dr. Smith. I feel like a lot of these companies, and I'm not talking about the companies that hire these diversity trainers, diversity and inclusion trainers. I'm talking about the trainers themselves and the companies that they work for. I feel as if they are perpetuating racism in order to make these billions of dollars. It's a profitable business. Anytime something is kicking off, everybody wants their cut. They want to know, how do I get in on this business? How do I approach, and so you drum up problems, you create problems, or you keep talking about the most minor things, and you blow it up so that companies can feel the need to keep these people on staff. And if it's not yielding the results, what's the point?
Why'd you stop being a diversity officer?
Because I felt I was preaching to the choir a lot. With every event I had, it was the same, few people, and that number would get smaller. You can't...
Same few whites or blacks?
Both. Yeah. It's hard to compel somebody to do things, right? And I don't like being compelled, at all. But when you don't make it mandatory, nobody shows up either. So I just thought it was a useless thing. There's a better way to go about doing this than having a diversity officer do all these events, right?
What's the better way?
Talking. Talking is a good way, right? Talking and being resilient enough to realize that people aren't going to always say things in the way you want them to say it. Realizing that if you walk into something with a good faith attitude, right, that you can probably get farther than if you walk into a place thinking that these people are already against me.
I remember when I first came to DC, I was doing a course. I remember stepping into the class, and we had to do introductions. And everybody just went around the room and they were just introducing themselves. This individual who is Black said, my pronouns, the person didn't even give the name. They just immediately went to what their pronouns were. And I just remember the room was quiet, and I was like, well, damn, okay. I guess it's important so I don't misgender you, but it was like that. It was the way it was said. It was like, quickly, let me just tell you what my pronouns are. And I could kind of just look at the faces of the people in the room, and you could just kind of see the wheels turning and a little shift in the attitudes. And I think, again, it was the way that the person had announced what their pronouns were. You could kind of tell people were like, yeah, I won't be talking to you, because, again, nobody wants to navigate that landmine of misgendering somebody. And so when the people in the room would refer to this individual, they would call this individual by their name. So they'd be like, Beetlejuice went out the room. Beetlejuice went to the bathroom. Beetlejuice, you know what I mean? And I don't personally think, because they seem like really decent folks, I don't think that they were doing it like, I don't want to call you what you want to be called. I think it was, let me err on the side of caution. Let me be safe and just refer to this person by their name. And I remember that individual got upset, like, why are they always calling me by my name? Like, why don't they ever say? I said, I think they do it to be, to make sure they don't misgender you. And the person just was like, well, they need to make a bigger effort. And so I said, people will prefer not to talk to you. If you're going to make a big deal of this, they prefer not to talk to you, or they're going to just call you by your first name. I think out of respect, you should just accept that they're going to call you by your first name so that they don't trip up because they don't want to misgender you. Because the person had a lot of heat. Like those people who come with a lot of smoke, and you just know they're just waiting for you to make a mistake for them to just kind of attack. I think that's what the situation was. And that's why I tell you, no matter how much training you do with people, and the more you do that, the more you give people smoke, the more they will recoil. They don't want anything to do with you. And it builds resentment. I also feel like people have no clue what is offensive anymore. I think everything is seen as offensive, every single thing. And we don't give people grace to just make simple mistakes, you know, to have simple trip ups. I was at work and one of the guys who I don't know him, but I know him, saw me and he's like, "Oh, hey, Ro, wow, you look really nice. I like your makeup, but you look beautiful." And I didn't even get a chance to say, "Oh, thank you." Here comes this angry woman. I don't even know who she is talking about. "Oh, what makes you think that she wants to be told that she's beautiful? Like, what makes you think she would even want to hear that? Like, maybe you should just check." Miss, who you talking for? Huh? I want to say, girl, you better get up out of here and let this man tell me how I'm beautiful. Adore me. Tell me more. How I look. Like, I want to hear that. But in the workplace, these people, they be so triggered. He wasn't talking to you, miss. Okay? He was talking to me. So, I don't get it. Like, why you jumping in to defend me? Let me defend me. And I need to defend me. I need to hear him say many, many times. Every time he see me, I want to hear him say, "I'm beautiful." Like, some guys are very, like, they'll just look and they won't say anything because they don't want to get in trouble. You don't get in trouble with me. Only if you try to get fresh with me, that's a totally different thing. But if you want to say I look good, man, tell me I look good. And don't listen to what she got to say. I also want to go on record to say I'm not insane. This interview was such a great interview. It's like 30 minutes long. I'm not going to go into the whole thing. I wanted to share just bits and pieces. But I thought he was spot on, and I would encourage you all to go to Stossel TV here on YouTube and watch his take. I'm definitely going to be paying more attention to Erec Smith, just because I find him to be so open-minded and enlightened about this subject, and I think it feels great to hear that other side. Well, you know, it just feels good to hear that perspective. And I saw people just applauding him, saying, "Oh my God, you know, thank you for speaking out. Thank you for saying this. You're so brave. You're so brave." And he is brave, and he has gotten a great deal of backlash, particularly from folks in the Black community. Oh, they've been dogging him big time. But he stands firm and he keeps doubling down. I want to speak about that bravery thing because everybody always thinks it's so admirable that somebody is brave, but you too can be brave. If you're speaking the truth and you believe what you're saying, like this is the truth, the unfiltered truth, and you try to speak it with kindness, yes, you will always have people who disagree with you or who try to destroy you, cancel you, demean you, whatever. But if you're speaking the truth and you speak it with kindness, you stand firm on that. And don't just look to other people to be brave. You be brave too, because someone like him would need your support, would need you to stand up for him. But I just, that's my pet peeve when people say, "Oh, you're so brave. You go on that platform and you're so brave." It comes with consequences sometimes. Bravery comes with consequences. And a lot of people don't want to suffer the consequences. So they will sit back and they'll applaud somebody for their bravery. And you're echoing everything I thought or what I want to say. But you say it too. You say it too. When people stay silent, that's when problems persist. Let me tell you something. This is the last thing I can say. If I went into an organization where they told me to check my Black privilege or my foreign privilege or my female privilege, and they tell me don't be ignorant and don't be this and don't be that, you think I was going to be sitting there with my mouth pinned up like, I'm going to just check. They would have been hearing Rogan mouth all up and through Coca-Cola and everywhere else. Okay? And they potentially might have had a lawsuit on their hands. No, you got to speak up. Be brave. Anyway, drop your comments down below. Let me know what you thought about this interview. I hope you all go and watch it in its entirety because it's really a great interview. For the white folks in the comment section who are possibly going to come, let me know some of the things that you all have heard over the years that have hurt your feelings. Black folks, I want you to weigh in. Everybody, please just weigh in. Let me know what you thought about the interview and what was said. Were there things that you disagreed with that Dr. Smith said? If so, please drop them down below. Anyway, guys, be sure to subscribe to my channel and turn on the notification bell. For those of you who are subscribed already, please turn on your notification bell so that you are notified when I drop a video every Wednesday at 1 o'clock. Take the time to go through my channel and watch my other social commentary as well and leave comments. I love that. I love engaging with you all. I'm sure some of you have gone back and forth with me in the comment section. I love to talk to you all. I don't just drop a video, ask for comments and disappear. I'm there. You can follow me on Instagram at ThisBahamianGyal. You can go to my blog, www.ThisBahamianGyal.com, and on TikTok at ThisBahamianGyal TBG. I will see you all next week, Wednesday. Please be safe. I love you guys. And for you all, again, who just came across my channel for the first time, thank you. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I love you. Mwah. I'll see you next week. Bye.